Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the REI Network podcast. Today I have a special guest. She's actually a business partner of mine. She's been on the show before, and we've got a real interesting subject that not a lot of people talk about. We're going to be talking how we negotiated a lien from $106,000, $106,000 to $6,000. Okay, so we literally got $100,000 taken off on a lien to make about $25,000 on that deal. All right, and we're going to be talking kind of the things that you can be doing to negotiate these liens, what we kind of did, and hopefully give you as much content as possible about that. So let me bring over Melissa here. Melissa, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you, coming on and getting on the podcast and on YouTube. I know we're super busy with what we've got going on in business, so we're going to try and keep this short and to the point. And it was funny, Melissa, because when I asked you about this, doing liens, it's kind of boring, right? It's like a boring topic that no one really wants to talk about, but no one knows how to do. And when people understand the things that you can do to renegotiate liens down or get them cleared, because you need to have them cleared before you close the property, right? And there's not always equity. Like everyone's probably thinking, well, yeah, if you have $30,000 equity and the seller's going to clear a $10 lien at closing, then it all works. But when you have $100,000 or there is no equity to clear that at closing, you've got to renegotiate the deal down or there is no deal, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So tell us on this deal, we were due to make like $25,000, $30,000, and all of a sudden we're in closing or we're getting ready to close, and boom, we get from nowhere there's a $106,000 lien on the property. So what type of lien was this, and what did we do to go about clearing it?
Well, it was an old judgment. And so the guy had a business partner several years ago. They went out of business, and it got messy. And so there was not just that one lien. That was the huge one. There were several liens that were attached to that property. And to be honest with you, I don't think the guy even knew that they were there, because he had it for a buy and hold. I'm paying attention. They were just sitting there. So when I called him and said, hey, you got a lot of liens on this property, he was like, what? And so he explained to me what happened with his business partner. I'm like, all right, well, how are we going to get this cleared? Those at that point had judgments, were in some attorney's office somewhere. They've been sitting there forever. And so he was like, I don't know what to do, because the property itself was not selling for $100,000. I forgot how much it was, but so the lien was actually more than what I was picking up the property for. And I thought, well, we're upside down out of the gate. So what are we going to do? So what I did is when I got a copy of the title, I just called the attorney's office and said, look, here's the deal. Explained to them what was going on, and they were like, okay, so you're going to pay the $100,000. I'm like, no, because there's not that much equity in that property. And so I ended up talking to one of their collection specialists, and it took many calls and quite a bit of negotiating, but we got it down, or I got it down from 106 to 6. And it was just a matter of just really talking to them and explaining to them the property's not worth that much. It needs a complete renovation. I can get it appraised if you want me to, but this is where it's sitting. And they knew the area. And it was just really a matter of spending a lot of time and talking to them and explaining to them what was going on. And a lot of being nice to people that weren't very nice to me, because they're collections people. So
yeah. And I think the other thing is, though, as well, like, it's either take your $6,000 for their business or get nothing, right? Because no one else they were gonna, when it comes down to liens, like, if they don't sell to you, the next person that contracts it is just gonna run into the same thing. And when you have a deal like that, it's either, do you want 6 or do you want nothing? Yeah.
And that's kind of where we ended up. They dropped it down in increments. So we went from 106 to 86 to, we kept going down. And finally, I just said, look, here's how much room I've got on this. So I can give you $6,000. I know that's incredibly less than what that bill is, but he's never going to sell the property for what it is right now. It's deteriorating. It's not going to get any better unless he can sell it. So you can still put the lien against him. I don't know what else he owns. I need it off of this property. And he knew that I was going to do that, by the way. I talked to him. He's like, just get it off the property. He wanted rid of it. And so, after many phone calls and getting our closing attorney involved, where he would agree to pay that amount, and we had to exchange some paperwork, they agreed to it. And then he still has the lien on him personally somewhere. I don't know what they attached it to, but they took it off of that property. Once I explained to them the valuation of the property, I had to show them the tax records, what the tax assessed value was, and all of those things. And it just took a lot of talking and making them understand where it is. I showed them. I had the Dropbox with the pictures in it. Like, here's the condition of the property. Here's how much rents are collecting. And then once they saw the actual value, they knew they were never going to get that out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot of people listen, though, like, everyone wants to be in real estate and just have the easy deals, right? Where there's like titles clean, ready to go. You sell it, you make 10, 20K, and you move on to the next. And it couldn't have been any easier. The buyer walked in once, put his earnest money up, blah, 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 right? But the reality is, it's far from that, right? And I think sometimes, especially when you're getting into liens, you've got to be willing to be in it for the long haul, right? We had a meeting yesterday. We're just hiring another acquisition as well. And we kind of, we're talking about contracts and closing ratios and stuff. And, when we looked at it, we believe that if we want to do 6 deals a month, we need 12 contracts a month, right? So that's 50%. So that's probably going to give you a 25% drop off of bad location. Numbers don't work. It's not a deal because we're locking this up without seeing it. Mm-hmm. And then you got 25% of reality of liens on the property, things taking months. I mean, we're closing one right now that's been in closing. We're going to make $25,000 on this one. We've had this for 4 months, right? Under contract.
Just over 4 months. And same thing. She's got IRS lien. She's got a judgment lien. There are so many things attached to that property. And it's really just a matter of, playing the game, filling out the forms, getting them to sign things, sending them in to different people, calling the attorney's office, and just negotiating that and saying, okay, she owes you $30,000, but we're going to close this next week. So if we give you $5,000, the property, because the property's not, and we'll do the same thing. The property's not worth that. Will you take the $5,000? Most of the time they will, if you ask.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like any other negotiation. And people don't understand that. They say, oh, there's a $30,000 lien. Oh, so that's it. It's done. It's like, well, no. Go and get it down to $2,000 and make the deal work, or whatever number you need to get to make that deal work, because someone else behind you is either going to do it, or they know that in collections they won't get the money anyway. So that's really good. What are the types of liens do people come across? Like, what do we come across, and what are people going to kind of typically see when they're pulling title? Like, what's some of the most common ones that we get to what we have to kind of clear title on?
We've had several lately that have gone into tax sale, which happened in June, and the owners actually didn't even know that they were in tax sale. They say they didn't know it. So all you got to do is, for here, is just call the county, get the redemption amount. You got to do a little paperwork, get the owner to fill out some paperwork, find out who picked it up for tax sale, get the forms to them, get them to sign it. So we've seen a lot of tax liens, but it was that you get those at that time of year when the tax sale runs. You're going to see more of those pop. We get title problems where somebody's parents died and they didn't transfer the property, and you have to kind of go through that process, but that's probate. That's kind of something different. We got a lot of IRS liens. We've got municipal tax liens, fire dues, old fire dues, and a lot of times old water bills. We have a huge problem around here with, tenants going in, not paying their water bill, and they leave with this $5,000 water bill. Water's really expensive here, and so it adds up really fast. So we see that. So I have to negotiate those down quite a bit.
Yeah. So, and that's a great list, by the way, guys. If you can get the water shut off list, people that are being on the water shut off. That's a great list for you to market to if you can get it in your area. So what liens, Melissa, would you say are the hardest to negotiate?
IRS liens.
Yeah. Are they more firm, like they want their money? Or is there still some negotiation to be done, do you think?
No, they will negotiate. The problem with the IRS is getting in touch with somebody and they have 40,000 hoops you have to jump through. So you have to get all of these signed documents from the seller. And typically if it looks like it's going to get real deep in IRS lane, I'll honestly get a transaction coordinator to take me out of the middle of it because it's worth the $200. Because that person is getting the seller's social security numbers and all of that information that I don't really want my hands on. So if I can clear that information without socials and stuff, I'll do it all day long. If you've got to get people's social security numbers because of fraud and how bad it is right now, I'll usually pay a transaction coordinator $200, $250 if there's a big enough spread in it, if it's worth it. And let them do that. And that takes me out of that liability. So I will tell everybody, be careful. Don't get people's socials. There's just too much fraud going on.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. That's a great point. And we are obviously, as we talk about this, we're not attorneys. We can't give any legal advice either, which we haven't. I mean, we're telling you basically to get on the phone, have conversations, find out what paperwork. So I know what everyone's thinking. Well, what paperwork do we fill out? Well, you just got to ask, what do I need to do? What paperwork do I need to send to this person? And people, when you have conversations, will give you the paperwork that you need and who you need to send it to. You just need to get on the phone and ask questions, and the answers will obviously come back to you. So don't kind of overthink that, when you're doing it. So how many of our properties would you say that we close have liens on?
Oh gosh,
I have no idea, and I know, but I'm just curious. Well, what do you think if you were guessing?
I would say at least 50% of our properties have some sort of title issue. Now that may range from bad deeds that just had errors on them, deceased parents, liens, tax sale. So as far as just liens itself, I would say that's probably the majority of them, but at least probably 50% of everything we pick up. I mean, we just happen to be in a region of the country that has been kind of lax historically to get things recorded correctly. And COVID didn't help that, because you had one person going into an office maybe one day for a year to try to get things done. So everything is behind.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say regarding, a lot of people when it comes to marketing talks about the probate list, right? So everyone wants to do probates. They are the biggest deal, but then you got to say, well, should you do pre-probate or it's in probate? When can we buy it? And we do a little bit of probate, right? We were just talking earlier this morning regarding we probably need to focus on a few different lists here and build certain relationships with people. But in the probate process, what's the best way to approach a deal that's in probate? And we might have to come up with a scenario, I guess, but how would people go about it if it's in probate? Can you contract the property while you're waiting for probate to clear? I mean, what are the things that people are going to run into? What are the biggest, I guess, objections that we see in probate?
So the one thing, unless you're in Alabama, obviously I don't know your probate laws. And so the first thing I would tell you to do is just do a little bit of research and find out what your probate laws are. As far as Alabama goes, if the person has passed in the last 2 years, it has to go through probate. If it's beyond 2 years, you can get that process done without it going through probate. But there are all kind of gotchas in there. Did they die with a will? Did they die without a will? Are there, did they have children? Are those children deceased? Are their children's children deceased? It can go on for quite a while. We just closed one maybe earlier this year or late last year. Honestly, I don't remember. That was in probate. And the lady's husband had passed 10 years before. That's how long it had been stuck in that. They had a lot of assets. And this one property in a really good location was the last one she had to get rid of. And it's the one she was living in. She had since gotten remarried. And I had to jump through and work with the court to actually get that one closed. They knew what was happening. They didn't have a problem with it. But I had to get approval of my contract. And so she had to actually take the contract to her attorney, who took it to the probate court and said, is this contract okay? They approved it. We signed the contract. And then I had to wait for it to get through the process. But as it was getting through that process, I had the buyer lined up. I had the buyer on the hook, knowing that I don't have any control over this. It's in the probate court. I've been approved. We can close it, but until probate signs off on it, I can't guarantee it. So you're going to have to agree to ride this wave with me, which they did. And it was really just a process of talking to the probate attorney, her probate attorney, and the clerk at the probate court, and just try to coordinate, like, where are we and kind of what's going on with it. It was a process of just getting approvals. So it's really not that hard. It just takes time. And anytime anybody says anything to me about somebody died, especially if it's a husband or wife, the first thing I ask is how long ago was that? Was it a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? If we can get beyond that 2 years, I'm like, okay. Did he have children's children? All of those things, because those are just smart things to ask, because there's an heirship affidavit. So let's say they died, 2.5 years ago. Then you can go and get heirship affidavits from people within that. It's different for every state. For here, you need friends, not direct family members, but friends that knew who the children of the deceased were. I mean, you just got to have some history. So it takes a little bit of digging to do.
And the heirship of affidavit, what is that for people listening?
It's saying who the heirs were. So let's say, like in that particular instance, they had, he died without a will. So we actually had to get some of those. So she was his wife, and she had a child, and then she had a grown child. And so they had to actually sign off and say, yes, I'm aware that she's selling the house, and then I'm an heir to the property, and I agree for that to be sold. And then the other part of the heirship affidavits is I had to get 2 people that were not family members to sign an affidavit, which basically says, yes, I'm aware that she was married to him, and these are his only children. It's just trying to substantiate that nobody is aware of any outlying children or grandchildren somewhere that's getting cut out of an estate. It's pretty much all it is.
Yeah. The other big thing as well, when you're dealing with, probate and things that are going to come up, is that there might be multiple people involved, meaning there could be 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and then 4 of them are all on ready to sell. And there's one that's just digging the heels and not having any of it. It will not clear. So that's when the negotiation then needs to go, well, can we get her on the phone? Can we speak to her? Can we have a conversation? What have we got to do to get her to actually sign this document? Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing with probate, guys, and why it takes long is because a lot of family members don't get on, and they will literally dig their heels just to annoy everyone else in the family, and they don't really care about the money. They're just like, no, I'm not doing it, because they're doing the opposite to what everyone else wants to do, because they've had a family fallout. So you have to see if you become like the peacemaker and trying to piece everyone back together to get these things done. And there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I don't think there's anything that we've told you that doesn't rely a bit of research, right? Number one, as Melissa said, research what it is. How does probate work in your state? In Alabama, it's 2 years, but it could be different in every state. So the first thing is Google that and understand it, and then get on the phone, and you just have to be willing to work it. And are you prepared to do that? Most people in Alabama, and I'm only saying Alabama because we do a lot of business there, are not willing to go through the hoops to make the money. So when you make 25 grand, well, how did you do that? I just got on the phone and had conversations. It's not rocket science, and you don't need to be an attorney. Melissa comes from a 35-year paralegal background, so she has the lingo when she speaks, right? But when I do it, I act like I'm as dumb as a brush, right? And you're just having conversations like, hey, I got this person over here. I got this. What forms do I need? What do I got to file to get it done? So you don't need to know anything. You just have to be willing to do the work, and you will get through it by asking questions and then go, oh, you need to send this to there. You need to do that. Okay, great. You go and do that. Then it's now what? And you figure it out as you go. You've just got to be willing to do it. And most people with liens are not willing to do it. But when you negotiate them, they're some of your biggest deals, right? Your biggest deals. We made 25 grand from 100 grand lien. What if we would have got it down and we were making 80 grand and we got 100 grand off, right? I mean, it could have gone either way there. So just for something that people need to think about, you've got to be willing to have conversations, build relationships. And there's nothing worse than like people are trying to figure out what a mortgage broker does, right? If you're doing creative finance, like, I'm not a mortgage broker, so let them do their work. I'm not an attorney. Let them do their work, what that you're paying them to do. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know how to communicate to get it done. That's how I would say it. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, and most attorneys, if you just ask, your closing attorney will tell you if you ask. One, they know you're going to do it and they're not going to have to. So 9 times out of 10, if you just ask your closing attorney, all right, because if he comes back and says, oh, we got this probate issue, all right, what do I need? What do I need to do to clear that? I'll do it. Because if you're relying on somebody else to do it, it's probably not going to get done. So just ask them. They'll tell you. You don't have to know. And when you're negotiating the stuff, to be honest with you, you're right. I've been in law for 30 plus years. So I understand the process. I've done it and I know how to speak their language. But for those who don't, not knowing and being honest and playing stupid and just throwing yourself at their mercy, you're going to get a lot further with them anyway. It's like, I'm really sorry. I just don't know. Can you please help me? Like, and a lot of people don't like to ask, would you please help me? I really, and admit, I just, because it makes you feel like you're stupid and you don't know what you're doing. But to be honest with you, if you're putting yourself under that person and you're elevating what they think they know, they're going to be more apt to help you. I mean, that's just the way it goes with sellers, buyers, negotiating liens or anything else. I can get around it because I have that experience. But if you don't need it.
No, you really don't. And people, if you're likable, they're willing to help you, right? And Melissa's right that no one wants a know-it-all, right? Someone that thinks they know what they're doing when they don't know what they're doing, they're going to be like, I ain't got time for you. Bye. Right? So coming in and just being normal, having a conversation, asking for help, asking that you're willing to do anything, you're willing to fill anything out, you'll do exactly as they say. You just need some guidance on what to do. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to help you. They really, really are. And hopefully listening to this, if one of you get a lien cleared because of this and make some money, then obviously we've done a job by kind of telling you what to do. So that's awesome. Just on a side note, so that's kind of, talking about liens. Other thing I just want to touch on real quick here before we get done is we made some transitions in the business as well to start buying a lot more property in this market. And I suggest if anyone listening to this that's experienced, you need to be looking for private money, okay? And you need to be taking these deals down, because if you want to stop making your 10s and 15s, $1,000 spreads on your wholesale deals, again, which is nothing which is great, all right? But the art of this business is finding discounted properties if you're wholesalers and rehabbers, and you make your money when you buy, not when you sell, okay? So if you've already put the effort in, you've already got that lien cleared, right? You've gone through all of that to make 15,000. What if you could purchase that property and stick it on the MLS and make 40? What if you could buy that property and stick 40,000 in and make $65,000 on that property, right? Because remember, them moves, in our opinion, and I will speak for both of us here, I think, is the work has already been done. The art of finding the deal is where you make the money. So once you've got the deal, don't get lazy. We're renowned for it, okay? So we're no better. We get lazy and go, oh, it's 15 grand, let's just do it. But what if we just buy it and just turn around, put $5,000 in it, stick it on the MLS and make 40? Why wouldn't you do that? And that was kind of like, look, what are we doing here? Like, we have the ability to find discounted properties. Why aren't we capitalizing on it, especially with the wholesaling, especially with the market and the flips? And our biggest challenge, okay, right now is deciding, this is just pure honesty, is deciding when should you wholesale, when should you flip, right? Yeah. And that is the moving target for us of when you should do what, because this market is insane. Like, and I'll give you an example real quick. Like, what are you talking about? So we buy a property and I can put 5,000 in and list it within a week and make $40,000, right? Or am I going to put 40,000 in? It's going to take me 8 weeks. Then I'm going to list it and I'm going to make $45,000, right? So you're probably thinking, well, yeah, just take the 40. But sometimes you don't know, is it going to get bid up? So you have to look at locations, and that's where we're at now in business, Melissa. I mean, you can add on this, but that's our discussions. Like, when should we flip? When should we wholesale? How much should we put in? What finishing should we do for the area? Because it's just a moving target. What do you think on it?
Yeah, so I like the pretty things, and so I fight that, and it's hard. The one that we have in closing now after we flipped it, I put too much money in it. I 100% did. And I look back at it now, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? I didn't have to put that much money in it. But you have to be careful. It's easy to get carried away. I wanted the really pretty high-end courts because it was going to make the house look like I would want it to look. I did not take into consideration the crazy market right now. People just want countertops. They're not worried about white courts. And the funny thing is my GC is actually the one that said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, stop me." Yeah. So the ones that we're doing now, I'm literally.
Let me just say one thing though, and this is really important. Yes, we overspent. Yes, we blew the budget. We did all of them things, but we still should make around $28,000, $27,000 on it. So when we say we did that, the only reason this deal works is because we bought at the right price. That's the only reason. Right. And most of you listening to this would have not bought at the right price, and now you're upside down in a property that you've got to sell, and you've got to bring 20 grand to the table, right? Right. So we're making 28. We should have made probably 60. So we overspent by 30 grand, let's say, but we still made 28 grand. And that's the only reason, because we bought right. I just wanted to identify that. So now,
and it was a good lesson, because we're making, so we're not losing money. And I for me, it was, I got to correct that, because it's an easy mistake to make. You get in there and it was in a good area, but you just see all of these things, and it's easy not to pay attention to, I'm spending $200 on that fixture instead of $65 on that fixture, because it's the little things. But when you get to the end of the budget, you're like, oh crap. So yeah, it's easy to do. It was a lesson. We're still making money, and so we're okay in that. But I learned going forward, because we had that conversation. I was like, okay, I have to get better at wholesaling. Because right now the market doesn't demand me to do the high-end flips. A couple of years ago it did, but now it doesn't. So you got to be able to pivot with that and change, and that's something that I'm learning. And so instead of putting $5,000 worth of quartz in a house, you're going to get $1,800 of granite. That's just as pretty, it's just not as expensive. Just making some minor changes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So a few tips there, guys, that you should be looking at. Again, bringing private money in, which is a whole nother episode. We could talk about that. Taking down your deals that are deals, and trying to expand on them profits, because you've already done the work. You've already negotiated the lien. You've done all them things, okay, to get the deal. So awesome.
One other thing, the negotiation doesn't end just because you got it locked up with the seller. Let's say you got it locked up with the buyer. You've negotiated those liens down. Everybody's happy. One last negotiation needs to happen. Hey, Mr. Seller, I got all these liens knocked down, but I had to put all this work into it. Is there any way you could drop that just $5,000? And they see that, it just happened to me, is why I know we've got one in closing. And I went back to the seller and I said, look, and this one had $33,000 worth of liens on it. And I said, look, here's the deal. I'll get these liens knocked down so that I can make it work. They wanted rid of the property, but I need it for this instead of that. Because in order for me to take care of these liens and to get those liens off of you, and so they won't attach it to any of your other assets, I really need that lower. And then I went back to the buyer and said, hey, I've had to do all this stuff. Could you jack that up $5,000? And he went up $3,000. So we just built in another $8,000, and they're walking out. The sellers are. They're not making any money, but they're getting rid of liens.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, really good. Negotiate, have conversations, not rocket science. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know how to pick up a phone and talk and ask questions, ask for help, and get through it. Yep. Well, look, Melissa, I appreciate it. Thank you for jumping on. I know it's crazy right now. Have a good weekend. Happy birthday as well this weekend.
Thank you.
And guys, we'll talk to you soon. If you're interested in working with me, by the way, go to reinetwork.com/join, reinetwork.com/join. These are the conversations that we cover on our calls on how to actually get through and actually close deals as well. So we can definitely help you with that. So go to reinetwork.com/join. All right, Melissa, appreciate it. And I will see you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Talk to you soon.